G'day there guys, it's your Aussie Hubby Markee, back at it again with another r/legal advice video. Now with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and get ready for some bloody good legal advice. Our first post today is by user Told Joshua, titled, "My landlord made an unreasonable demands, then locked me out of my place because they're afraid I'm going to contaminate them with the coronavirus. This was in Michigan. Now, this is about a dispute with my landlords. I'm a grocery store worker. I'm considered essential and continue working during the pandemic. We were clearly told that we would be fired and not rehired if we didn't, so I don't have a choice. I need the money anyway, and I rent a room in the landlord's house. I always paid rent on time. Keep my place clean. There has never been an issue with me. The landlords are a man and his wife. They are in their 60s. They're very afraid of the coronavirus, to the point where they're acting irrationally. They say that they have a problem with me going to work and living in their house. The room I rent is on the side of the house and independent from it. I accessed it from the outside, and I don't have to enter their house. From the start of the pandemic, the landlords insisted several times that I should stop working. I had to tell them repeatedly that it wasn't possible. Then one day, they decided to seal my windows with tape so the contamination doesn't fly from my room to the outside. They also disabled the AC for that reason. I don't like that, but I didn't want to antagonize, so I didn't protest too much at the time. 3 days ago, I found a notice on my door from my landlords saying that they demand I take some measures to avoid contaminating them. They want me to strip in my car, behind the hedge to avoid bringing dirty clothes in, then sanitize myself completely before I enter my room, not just wash hands, disinfect my whole body with bleach if that's all I have, and sanitize everything I bring back from work with bleach. I was to accept the conditions by the next day or leave. I'm all for safety, but this is ridiculous. I'm aware of the risks, and I'm very careful not to touch anything before I shower when I come back from work, and of course, I wash and sanitize my hands all the time, and I wear a mask. I'd be willing to strip before I enter my room if needed, but not in the driveway where everybody can see me. They haven't told me how I'm supposed to wash myself outside, and I think I should be able to open the windows. My room isn't connected in any direct way to their house. There's no door between their place and mine. My windows are the only ones on this side of the house. I replied on the notice that I didn't accept the conditions, but I would do my best to act as safely as possible, and I can't leave now and put it on their door when I went to work. When I came back from work yesterday, they had changed the lock on my door. All my stuff is inside. They called me on my phone when they saw me in the driveway and said they would let me get my things back after the pandemic, but in the meantime, they don't want me on their property. I spent the night in my car because I had nowhere else to go. I think they don't have the right to do this, but with the pandemic situation, I'm not sure anymore. Also, I'd like to know if I can be trespassed for going back to get my stuff. Ideally, I'd like to go back to my own place, but I might be able to sleep in a friend's basement for some time if necessary. But I need my things back. Thank you. Locking you out is highly, highly illegal. What you need to do was call the police the second you weren't able to open your door. Go ahead and call the police now, and let the responding officer deal with your landlords. Do you know what the police is going to do? Will they force the door open? I'm not 100% sure about your state, but illegal evictions are misdemeanors in some states. The police will likely show up and explain in great detail to your landlords how badly they have screwed up. If the responding officer is halfway competent, I would assume they will ensure that you are able to get back into your apartment. Additionally, you can sue your landlord for the illegal eviction. At a minimum, you would get back any monetary damages you suffered as a result of the illegal eviction, and in many states, you can also get punitive damages. Make sure you get a police report and go ahead and contact a landlord-tenant attorney right away. They may take this case on contingency. If I can get back to my place, is there something I can do about the windows? Was it legal to tape them? I'm having a hard time picturing exactly what they did to the windows. Certainly they have to let you have airflow one way or the other, so you need to be able to open a window or have the HVAC system working. They put tape on the frames to seal the window to the frame. They cannot be opened. Not a lawyer, but sealing the window shut seems to be like it could be considered a violation of some sort of fire code. Might want to check on that. Good luck. That is an illegal eviction, despite whatever is going on in the world. You call the police should let you in. That's about it for the police involvement, unless you are locked out again. As a tenant, they are denying you access to your paid room and your personal belongings. They are also breaking any lease or contract they have had with you as a tenant. For the time being, and it might be difficult, you might want to look over any contracts you have with them, and see about finding a temporary place to stay. Fear is a strong thing to overcome, especially the older we get. They may be telling you the truth, and would let you get your stuff after the virus passes, but pandemics can last for years, even if the worst of it passes. And now onto post 2. Please help. Landlords locked me out of my rented room for not following up their unreasonable rules. Stripping on the driveway where everyone else can see me so I don't bring contaminated clothes home. Police won't come. Can I break the lock to enter my place? Follow up to my previous post. See it for more detail. Basically, my landlords locked me out of my place because they fear I'm going to contaminate them. I'm a grocery store worker, so I'm exposed to coronavirus. They want me to strip in my car so I don't bring back dirty clothes to the house. I refused because it's a 60 feet walk from the driveway to my door, and everyone can see me from the street. They are terrified, so they changed the lock on my door with all my possessions inside, and told me they'll trespass me if I enter their property before the end of the pandemic. As was suggested here, I told them I would call the police, because it's an illegal eviction, but they answered it's not because I'm not really evicted, it's just temporary until the end of the crisis. Then I called the police, and they said they won't come for this as it's a civil issue. I called twice and had the same answer. Landlords won't budge, so I had to spend a second night in my car. All my things are locked in my room, I have no access to a shower even though I'm exposed at work, and I really need to get a shower and put on clean clothes when I come back from work. I would consider sleeping somewhere else, but I need my stuff. If the police won't come, do I have the right to break the lock and open the door to my room, or is it breaking and entering? Can I be trespassed? I don't want to escalate the situation, but I don't know what else I can do. Edit, location is Michigan. You need to call back and demand an officer respond. Per Michigan EO 2020-54, your landlord is prohibited from removing or excluding you from your home unless you pose a substantial threat to another person or an immediate and severe risk to property. Furthermore, it states that a willful violation of the governor's orders is a criminal misdemeanor. If the police officer answering the phone refuses to dispatch an officer, ask to speak to the duty sergeant. You're being illegally prevented from accessing your place of residence. Okay, thanks. I'll try, but if they still don't come back, can I break into my place? Your best bet is going down to the station and asking for an escort. A bit harder to brush you off in person. With the caveat that this is guidance not based on your state's laws, but rather reflects my opinion, and should not be construed as any form of legal standing, I don't think that you could be charged with breaking and entering the property for where you are a legal resident, under a valid and presumably paid-to-date lease. Furthermore, should your landlord try to trespass you from your place of residence, they would, have to call the police, which would be of benefit to you. As a heads up, there's always a possibility that the landlords then try to withhold the cost of the broken lock from your security deposit upon your eventual departure. If there's a way to get past it without damaging the lock, you'll want to try that. But in the end, if your city's police department continues to be unwilling to assist, try your county sheriff office or state police. You need to continue forcing this matter until the situation is resolved. Bottom line, your landlord can't keep you from your property. Side note, I presume you're also looking for a new place to live? If not, I would do so ASAP. Update, Michigan's Attorney General has some really nice information covering landlord-tenant laws in their state. Specifically, Section 1.3 refers to MCL 600.2918, which states, you may bring suit against an owner who forcibly and unlawfully ejects you from the leased premises. You are entitled to recover possession of the premises and the greater of 3 times the amount of your actual damages, or $200. So instead of sleeping in your car, you could have probably just paid for a motel room, and that could be included in your actual damages. Per these two rules, unlawful interference with a possessory interest, including a variety of things, including using force or threatening to use force, removes, retails, or destroys your personal property, changing, altering, or adding locks and security devices without immediately giving you keys or other unlocking equipment, and boarding up or removing doors, or windows, or locks. You appear to also be entitled to damages for emotional stress, embarrassment, and humiliation you suffered as a result of the lockout. Use those statutes when talking to the police. Thanks a lot, I will say this. I don't understand why the police won't take care of it. Maybe they're overworked because of the situation? It's a civil matter is something that predates COVID, sadly. Best legal advice has been to go to the station. You should also fill out a report with the Michigan Attorney General's office, as it seems they are going after landlords for illegal evictions. Update to post about landlords locking me out for not following unreasonable rules. I called the police again. Said again I was being illegally evicted and cited the law they were breaking. This time someone took me seriously. I had to wait a few hours, but a policewoman finally showed up at my landlord's house and made them give me the key to the new lock, so I was able to spend the night in my room. They were angry and scared, but there was nothing they could do. It's sad because they're not bad people, but fear will make some people go crazy, I guess. I'm looking for a new place to stay, hoping to find something quickly, and that the current landlords make no drama with my current security deposit and all. Thanks for your help. Our next post is by user CatBeans, titled, Washington State. Neighbor is currently video recording me and has a camera directly pointed at my bedroom window. What can I do? So I spoke with police here, and they said that he legally has the right to record anything he wants. However, I am sure I have some right to privacy. When the police visited my neighbor recording the camera, my neighbor did move the camera ever so slightly toward the street. Now, a month later, the camera is directly pointing into my bedroom window again. My home is 50 feet away from his. It is clear that this is where it is recording. He has also threatened me when I have asked personally to move the camera, and he replied with, "My house, my rules," as well as a mention of recording me calling him the N-word, I didn't, on said camera. I just want it pointed away from my bedroom window. I'm sure he can hear what goes on in the bedroom as well. What are my options? Am I allowed to put up a board on my property, blocking the camera view from my window? Honestly, that's about all I have left in the tank. Thanks. So, this guy has a camera that is 50 feet away, but capable of picking up audio in your own home, and it has night vision capabilities, and he's gonna report you to the FBI, and he's told you all of this? Look, it sounds to me like this guy is bat crap crazy, but I really doubt any of the things he told you are actually true. I mean, what exactly does he even plan to report to the FBI? He probably doesn't have any audio recording equipment or night vision powerful enough to be worth anything from 50 plus feet away, through a window no less. Pull your curtains shut when it's dark out, and otherwise ignore the lunatic unless he becomes legitimately threatening. There is a side issue that he has already been approached by the police about. He has an LRAD and outside audio system pointed at our home where he blasts random sounds at night and into the early morning. Our code enforcement officer looked into the problem and found out the guy who used to live in our home sold it due to the sounds during all hours of the night. He tells our other neighbors it's the railroad and the government flying drones over our homes. He told us it was our mortgage company at first, trying to make us move. He's dangerous in the sense that he is mentally incapable of making the right decisions. Is there any fallback on the previous owner for not disclosing an absolute bat-crap neighbor? I would think there is, but damn, that's shady. Also, it's totally okay to just own an LRAD? The code enforcement officer told us we should be looking into that, as in, either the realtor or the mortgage company screwed up by not disclosing a mentally unstable man lives next door. He has been visited by mental health agents from the police station before regarding this issue. And Brad Weasley says, put up curtains. Edit, and yes, you can set something up on your property blocking his view. My windows in the bedroom have a tint on them, as well as blinds and curtains. It still isn't right to have a camera pointed at my window, as I'm positive he can hear us through all of that. It's not right morally and ethically, but it's not illegal to video record anything he wants from his house. If he is audio recording, it is conceivable, although I don't know really if it is not surreptitious. You could have some kind of action that he is eavesdropping on you. What makes you think that A, he is audio recording you, and B, his camera can hear you through your window? He told me he has video recording of my roommate coming in and out of the house. I don't see the relevance of having that, but he did say he would report me to the FBI. This guy is mentally unstable. Get your own camera and record his house/camera. Consider buying a shotgun in case he gets crazy enough to try a home invasion. The house is fortified with dogs and guns. This is probably Texas, isn't it? It sounds like Texas. Doesn't sound like Washington State. Update. Washington State. Neighbor is currently video recording me and has a camera directly pointed at my bedroom window. What can I do? So, a ton has happened since I last posted. I had mentioned in the comments that my neighbor had been basically using sound terrorism to harass us. I began writing in a log of each event that occurred, with the time, the date, the description. If I called the police, I did for almost every one, and it began to show an alarming pattern. He was playing sounds at random times of the night, every single night. After each major event of sounds, I would drop off a written statement to my local police station for the code enforcement officer. The city was now looking at charging him for noise violations based on my complaints. I took my 3-page log and copies of 7 signed statements, and finally had enough for the police taking their time to work on the case against my neighbor. I dropped $95 on paperwork to begin an anti-harassment order against my neighbor. I made sure to explicitly mention the camera pointed into my bedroom window and the ongoing noises. He was served the temporary order that very day by the local police, and sure enough, the noises ramped up. Before our court date to discuss the anti-harassment order, we were subpoenaed to be witnesses for the noise violation. We also brought the former owner of the home as well as the person who lived on the other side of my neighbor as witnesses to his noise-making capabilities. My neighbor never showed to the court date, and at that point had $1,250 pending in tickets. His lawyer showed up an hour late, and the judge graciously accepted his plea to move the date a month forward. Disappointment. Then the date for the anti-harassment order came. Once again, my neighbor didn't show, and his lawyer begged for more time to look over the case. The judge was just and said that everyone has a right to defend their First Amendment rights, so he moved the court date for a month later as well. Disappointment number 2. The noises are continuing on the regular at this point, and we are trying to record them as best as we can on our phones. It was really hard to do because the noises were short and happened at random in the middle of the night. The date for the second anti-harassment hearing arrived, and finally, we saw our neighbor come through the courtroom and sit in the back. When it was our turn to explain the situation, we made sure to present our call log, our statements, and videos that we had as evidence against our neighbor. Our neighbor's lawyer tried to get us to give up the call log because he mentioned he was not aware of it before our court date. The judge basically told the lawyer to go screw himself. The lawyer's only defense for my neighbor was that he worked long hours and couldn't possibly be awake in the middle of the night to terrorize us, and that conversely, we were the ones making the noises. We then brought up the fact that our neighbor had a security camera pointed directly at our home, and he should have plenty of evidence to prove we were indeed the noisemakers. The judge very confidently approved our anti-harassment order, stating no more noises, no more cameras in our windows, or at us in general, and our neighbor is not allowed within 25 feet of us. He immediately moved the camera pointing in our bedroom window to being completely flush with the side of the house. Awesome! This was great news. We finally achieved some peace, and then the date for the noise violation trial came, just as his lawyer showed up and made a big deal with the city lawyer that one ticket would be paid, in exchange for no appeal to our anti-harassment order and to throw out 2 tickets. It sucked, but they took the deal. Whatever. And all seemed well. Then about a month after the anti-harassment order kicked in, the noises began again, and the camera began to slowly point into our garage, back in the direction toward the bedroom window. This time, the police noticed something more alarming. A red light was going off in the tinted window directly behind the camera on the outside of my neighbor's house. They shone their flashlight and spotted a lens. My neighbor had a camera inside his window, pointed at my bedroom window the entire time that the order was in place, and long before that. The officers told us to stay quiet, don't be alarmed, but they were now actively seeking a search warrant for the property to seize any noise-making equipment and take down the cameras, as he had broken the order. The next weekend, my neighbor was arrested and we got to sit outside on the front porch while they disassembled the cameras and seized speaker after speaker, megaphones, etc. from my neighbor's home. They said he had 4 foot of insulation surrounding the room with the camera, and the front door of the home was completely barred shut. Unfortunately, they just seized the equipment and will eventually give it back. My neighbor was out of jail the next day, and since they didn't have a search warrant for his hard drives, they couldn't place any voyeurism charges, despite my insistence. They even mentioned that they saw me and my husband on a laptop of his. I'm just happy that the noises have stopped, and as far as I know, no more hidden cameras. I'm just glad I could update this crazy situation for you guys. I'm sure I'm not out of the woods yet. TLDR, got an anti-harassment order and cameras were supposed to come down. Neighbor was a creep and had a hidden camera for a month while the order was in place. Probably longer. He got arrested and no more cameras. Oh, you thought that was the end? Update 2. It's close to a year now that we've dealt with the worst of my neighbor. Almost a year ago, we achieved the success of an anti-harassment order granted. That summer, he was arrested for harassing us and he stopped with the cameras and the noises. But something was a-brewing behind those closed doors. Around early November 2017, we had a knock on the door one evening. It was an officer asking us if we had heard gunshots in the area. We had not. Soon into our conversation, he mentioned it was our neighbor who called and complained. They were aware of the situation and assured us that despite the situation, they have to respond to all gunshot calls. I was honestly not surprised that after all the quiet, something started up again. The next day, a police cruiser parked across the street from our home. I was expecting someone to knock again and ask about gunshots. No one came to the door, and the officer sat across the street, watching my home for over an hour. The next day, I emailed an officer I had been working with previously regarding the situation. The officer told me that my neighbor had been calling 911 every single day on my address for gunshots. By the time I got an email back, it had been a week. Every single day, this man was coming home from work, eating dinner, tending to daily life, and calling 911 on us for shooting guns. The officer said he would look into seeing if it counted as harassment through a third party. The new year came and went, and in early January, I emailed the officer back, and his response was simply that the city prosecutor wanted to set up a phone conference to discuss the plan going forward. The city prosecutor mentioned to me that at that point in time, my neighbor had still been calling 911 every day, even the morning of the conference call. She said they contacted all of my other neighbors to see if they heard any gunshots, and asked if they would testify that they have not heard anything coming from our property. They also planned to charge my neighbor with some counts of harassment and wrongfully utilizing emergency services. Part of his deal with the arrest over the summer involved him able to avoid jail time by having good behavior, and they are looking for their time back essentially. His arraignment date came, and his pre-trial was set. Came and went. It's being continued until next month. I am worried that he will try to continue this case until the end of time. Our anti-harassment order expires soon, and we will have to drag him to court once again to renew it, and spend more money. Things are starting to feel pretty dim again, and honestly, the recent continuance knocked the wind out of my sails. All I can do until I'm called as a witness and victim is wait. Update 3. Remember how I said that the city prosecutor was all on board to help me finish this? Well, things have changed. The second pre-trial after the case was continued is coming up. I contacted the prosecutor to ask why the case was continued. Apparently, the prosecutor went on an extended leave of absence and gave the case to another prosecutor. Okay, no big deal. I was given the contact of the new prosecutor and emailed them to check for an update. No response. 2 weeks have gone by, and 2 emails were sent with no response from the prosecutor. I even contacted the prosecutor's assistant, and no one has gotten back to me. Dead silence. To say that I am disappointed is an understatement. I don't know what to do, because the original prosecutor was so gung-ho about finishing this case, and now I can't get a hold of anyone. This is so uncommon, because when I had questions before, usually I would get a phone call with an answer, and at least an email response. My neighbor keeps adding trash cans to the fence line. These are large, heavy-duty cans with lids. I really don't know what it is about, but it's making me extremely uneasy. This whole situation is seriously giving me anxiety, and I just want it to be over. Radio silence from the only people who are trying to help me is making things so much worse. What should I do? Update 4. Final update. So it's all over. The prosecutor called me and said, of course, they aren't wanting to plead guilty to all the charges, and instead of jail time, his attorney wants 30 days of house arrest, which is what he does already, just sits in his house and never leaves. The trial was pushed to July, and we are moving out of state around that time. I told the prosecutor that we wouldn't be here to be witnesses. I have no soul left or fight in me. Thanks for all your help, everyone. The justice system has failed us. Oof. Oh my god, that's not a good ending. But hey, this has been Markee today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. That was a long story. I'm sorry that it didn't end too well, but not all stories end well in life. Hope you guys are having a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.